Harshada Rajani was a high achieving med student on a clear path until everything changed. What followed challenged her identity, her voice, and her sense of control. And what she's done since is nothing short of extraordinary. Now, before we dive in, you might notice something a little different about this episode. Hashada's voice has been gently sped up by about 30%. She speaks clearly and beautifully, but due to her experience with stroke and the journey her voice has taken to recover, her natural speaking pace is a little slower than mine. I made this adjustment to create a more balanced and easier listening experience, one where our conversation flows at a similar rhythm without losing any of her tone, insight, or presence. If you're a stroke survivor feeling stuck, dismissed, or unsure how to move forward, this episode is for you. I'm Bill Gassiamas. I've lived through stroke. I've faced the silence, the fear, and the unknown, and I created this podcast to offer the support that I hoped I had back then. Hashada's story is a powerful reminder that recovery isn't about going back, it's about becoming. And if today's conversation resonates, I'd love for you to check out my book, The Unexpected Way That a Stroke Became the Best Thing That Happened. You'll find it at recoveryafterstroke.com/book. Harshada Rajani, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Did I say that well or did I butcher it?
No, it was pretty good.
Hey, tell me a little bit about what life was like before the stroke.
So before my stroke, I was a typical young South Asian American girl, really close family, lots of friends, lots of fun. But obviously, as with most immigrant families, academics was our number one priority. So I was in med school at Duke before my stroke, and I wanted to be a pediatric oncologist. And I was dating another future South Asian doctor. So it was kind of a picture perfect life.
Mm-hmm. And what happened with regards to the stroke? What did you notice leading up to the day of the stroke? Anything that gave you any signs that something was wrong?
So nothing really. I had just gotten new glasses, and whenever I wore them, I would get a headache, and sometimes I would feel sensitive to light. And I went to my student doctor on campus, student health, about them, and they said they were ophthalmic migraines.
Were you at campus on the day of the stroke?
So luckily, it was Thanksgiving weekend, so I'd come home for the weekend. And I was actually getting a second opinion on my migraines. And then suddenly, the world started shifting and moving in front of me. I had vertigo for the first time. And then my parents took me to urgent care to get a shot for the nausea that the vertigo was causing. And then I passed out.
So the stroke was caused by a vertebral artery dissection.
Yes.
Do you have any idea, any recollection when or how that occurred? Was there any obvious signs?
No. The doctors have always said it was spontaneous, which is good and bad, because there's nothing I can point to and blame, and I don't have to keep replaying. So it's kind of freeing.
So the randomness of it is a bit of a blessing.
I think so.
Mm. That's interesting because the bleed that happened in my head, the artery, well, not the artery, the blood vessel that burst and started to leak, I kind of saw it as a random event as well. I didn't know that it was there. I didn't know it was happening. I lived with it for 37 years and then it just happened. And I kind of felt like the randomness was okay. Like, again, it was something that perhaps my lifestyle wasn't the best. It may not have made my situation better, but I didn't actually have something that I ignored. I didn't have something that I should have done something about. Nobody knew. So it just happened and it was one of those events.
Exactly. The burden is taken off your shoulders a little.
Yeah.
And I've thought about this a lot because in our culture, karma is a huge belief where good things happen to good people, bad things happen to bad people. So disability is always seen as some kind of moral punishment for something you've done in this life or the past life. So trying to unlearn that
Uh-huh.
and taking control of the fact that it was just random.
Yeah. I like that idea of unlearning that specific cultural piece of stuff that people cling to or
Yeah,
make make part of the conversation, which then turns stroke into something that is taboo.
yeah, definitely.
How old were you?
I was 23, so I was in my second year of medical school.
What nationality? What background is it? What nationality?
I'm Indian and Hindu
Indian and Hindu. Okay, so that karma conversation comes into it.
all the time. I guess people always are trying to find answers and explanations for why bad things happen. And I guess it's whatever gives you hope or whatever makes sense to you. Have you read any of the philosopher Albert Camus?
No, I haven't.
Well, he talks about absurdism, which I've grown to appreciate. Just he talks about how there's no meaning to our suffering, no meaning to whatever happened in our lives. But as humans, we crave rationality and we crave an explanation. And the distance between wanting an answer and there not being an answer, he calls that the absurd.
Mm. It's so true. I mean, the meaning is the only meaning is the one that we apply to it. My meaning can be totally different from the next person and the next person, and they are all constructs. We've constructed the meaning of that event, and somehow I'm not sure how it serves us, hopefully, or it doesn't serve us, and we become aware of that. I think if we become aware of meaning that we apply to something that doesn't serve us, I think that that's probably where you want to get to.
Yeah, but everyone has their own time to reach that point.
Yeah, the correct. That's the journey, isn't it? Everyone needs to go on the journey to
Yeah.
understand and discover. Hey, it's Bill here. I just wanted to pause for a moment. If you're thinking, if you've been listening and thinking this is the kind of support I wished I had more of, you're not alone. Recovery can feel isolated. Recovery can feel isolating. Many of us know what it's like to leave the hospital and suddenly feel like we're on our own. No roadmap, no guidance, just trying to figure it out day by day. That's exactly why I created the Recovery After Stroke podcast. When you support the show on Patreon, you're helping ensure that no one has to go through this alone. Not now and not in the future. Your support helps keep these stories alive for every stroke survivor currently in recovery and for all of those who will come after us. I'm on a mission to reach 1,000 episodes and beyond because every conversation brings light, clarity, and connection to someone who needs it. Visit patreon.com/recoveryafterstroke and consider supporting the show today. Wow, what a journey. From being completely locked in to becoming a powerful voice for disability advocacy, Hashada shows us what's possible, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, and creatively. Her story is a reminder that your worth is never measured by your deficits and that healing is not always about getting back to who you were, but about discovering who you can become. If you're listening to this today and you're still in the thick of it, early days, facing setbacks, or just plain exhausted, let this be your proof that growth is still on the table. Here's what I'd love you to Here's what I'd love for you to do. Reflect on Hashada's courage, try something new, even if it's small. Reach out to a friend, to this community, or to yourself. Thank you for listening. Your reviews, your comments, your support. It keeps this show going. And to those who bought the book or joined me on Patreon, thank you so much. You're part of something bigger than just a podcast. You're helping stroke survivors everywhere find their way forward, stay connected, stay curious, and remember, you're still here and you're still growing. And the story's not over. I'll catch you in the next episode. If you've been listening and thinking this is the kind of support I wished I had more of, you're not alone. Recovery can feel isolating. Many of us know what it's like to leave the hospital and suddenly feel like we're on our own. No roadmap, no guidance, just trying to figure it out day by day. That's exactly why I created the Recovery After Stroke podcast. When you support the show on Patreon, you're helping ensure that no one has to go through this alone. Not now and not in the future. Your support helps keep these stories alive for every stroke survivor currently in recovery and for all of those who will come after us. I'm on a mission to reach 1,000 episodes and beyond because every conversation brings light, clarity, and connection to someone who needs it. Visit patreon.com/recoveryafterstroke and consider supporting the show today. I did read a book many years ago, a small book about, I think, written about Buddha or because of Buddha or for Buddha. I'm not sure. I can't remember the book and the actual title of it, but it was all about karma. And my understanding of it was that karmic actions were as a result of ignorance, not as a result of events like something that happened to you in your brain. And for example, in my ignorance, I never I was never aware that people in a wheelchair were potentially going through a difficult time. I had some challenges that they had to overcome. I had this very ignorant idea that people in a wheelchair were just sitting down. I didn't see beyond, their physical situation. I just assumed, well, they're going about life, they must just be sitting down. Everything should be fine. But of course, after having spent some time in a wheelchair, I discovered that people in wheelchairs are not just sitting down. There's a lot more going on that we are not aware of. And because I was never curious enough to ask or find out, I was ignorant. And my ignorance put me in a situation where it was difficult for me to wrap my head around finding myself in that situation later on in my life when I was in my
Um,
40s.
that's so interesting. Like you didn't have the empathy. So the world was like, well, now you have to experience it.
Here's a little bit of what's the word? Here's a little bit of life experience for you. And now that you know that, what are you going to do to remedy that? And for me, it wasn't, I didn't feel bad about it, but that lesson, that learning, that philosophical kind of teaching allowed me to then gain that the I the understanding that things are far more complex and they're not surface level is the tip of the iceberg, and that you need to go deeper. As a result of that, the Recovery After Stroke podcast happened, and we're more than nearly 360 episodes in at this stage, and you know
Wow.
here we go. It's okay. I'm listening and I'm taking the lesson, and I am attempting to cease to be ignorant, even though I still am.
No, I think this is great. I wish I had found this podcast when I had my stroke, but the probably wasn't around then.
It wasn't because your stroke was in 2008. I had
Yeah,
the first bleed in my head was in 2012, and like you, there was nowhere for me to go and learn and discover and hear stories.
yeah. Most of literature online at the time was really, really negative and not helpful at all.
So when you experienced the stroke, you ended up in hospital. Uh, how long were you in hospital for? When did you wake up? How long were you in the acute phase?
So I'm not sure how many days it took me to wake up. I was on some pretty heavy sedatives, so I was in and out. But then I was overall in the ICU for 3 weeks and the rehab hospital for 5 months.
Did you wake up? Were you locked in?
Yeah, totally locked in. I couldn't even move my eyes in the beginning. Some people didn't even realize I was there.
Yeah, it would have been a surreal situation to find yourself in, and then for the people that turning up to see you.
Yeah, and I was over here. The nurses talking about me like I wasn't there because no one realized that I was
Fully cognitive aware.
totally 100%. My mom finally noticed my eyes looking at her.
Wow. Your story is familiar to me because I've interviewed a number of people that have been locked in. And Dylan, whose episode is not out yet, but it will be out by the time this episode goes live. And a number of other people who are locked in. Duncan Campling is another person who I interviewed who was locked in, and he was in a similar situation. And he had global deficits, not only cognitive but also physical, because the Pontine is such in such a location where if a stroke happens there, it affects both sides of the brain.
Yeah, I was paralyzed bilaterally from head to toe, including my vocal muscles. So just completely, I saw a phrase, a corpse with living eyes.
A corpse with living eyes.
Yeah, basically.
How long after did rehabilitation start? The rehabilitation where they took you away from hospital and they were fully focusing on your physical recovery.
So we got to physical therapy right away. Pretty much, I was like, what's the point? It felt like such a permanent situation. Like I didn't feel as if anything was ever going to change. But we started physical therapy right away. First, it was just passively moving my limbs and lots of electrical stimulation. And slowly, about 2 or 3 months, 3 months, we saw my left arm like quiver a little. And that was like the first big thing. And for the rest of the year, slowly, there would be a muscle contraction, a volitional muscle contraction all through my limbs. And we just continued with physical therapy. I don't know how it is in other countries, but here, insurance will not cover many sessions for an ongoing injury. So after I was discharged, after about a year from the hospital, I started going to a place called Race to Walk, a neuro recovery gym, and I went twice a week for 2 hours, and I still do that to this day.
Mm-hmm.
But just over the years, the muscle contractions would get a little bit stronger, and turning that into function has been hard. But I feel like I'm definitely made progress, and I'm still making progress.
Yeah, fantastic. So the voice as well, when I meet people who have had a stroke like yours and have been locked in, have a similar speaking voice. They're big breath and a big effort to get the words out. Is it effortful?
Yeah, definitely. In the beginning, I could only get one sound out per breath, and slowly it's gotten to one syllable, two syllables, two words. It keeps getting better and better. We've worked a lot on my diaphragm to help with that. And I found a few tricks that have helped. But I think that's why I've also gotten so into writing, because it's easier and less effortful to get my words onto the page than it is to speak my feelings.
Okay. So you prefer writing if you can.
Um, I used to, but I think that's why that muscle has developed in me.
Uh-huh. So writing is more efficient, perhaps. There's more effort to talk, and writing is a good way to communicate. talking is also a real good training to help you improve, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. And there's a direct human connection with talking. And I think I had missed that a lot when I couldn't speak for so long. So I always appreciate that.
You've been writing for a while,
Yeah,
and your website, you have a little website where you show some of those writings.
yeah.
Have you ever considered combining them and turning them into a book or anything?
I'm actually currently doing an MFA at Randolph College in a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing, and I'm working on a memoir.
Excellent.
But I can't, they won't publish something that everyone can find online. So it's all new stuff.
Okay. So the work that you're doing there is not necessarily publishable in a book format. You're going to have to come up with a new idea.
Yeah,
Well, as a master of, what was the master of?
fine arts.
Yeah, you should be able to come up with something.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, that would be a good project to get it out there. And the good thing about a project like that is publishing these days. You don't need to have a publisher. You can self-publish.
yeah. I haven't really explored that much.
Yeah. When did you start your university again?
Last year, last summer.
Are you attending university at campus?
Oh, it's a low residency program. So just the first 10 days of every semester, I have to be on campus. Then the rest of the semester is online.
Do you get somebody coming out to campus with you to support you, to help you through all that?
Yeah, so my caregiver stays with me.
Okay. How long are those days at campus?
Um, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. They're
What?
pretty poor. Yeah, because they're trying to stuff an entire semester's worth of stuff into 10 days. But I love it. Academics. I love all of that stuff.
Yeah, fair enough. It's a big day for most people. I imagine at the end of the 10 days, you're wiped out.
Yeah, I just sleep
You just sleep. Yeah. How long before it's complete, before the course is complete?
one more year. So 4 semesters total.
And what's your living arrangement like?
Right now. So right when I got back from the hospital, I moved back in with my parents, and that's where I'm still living.
Hmm.
My parents and my grandmother.
Hmm. Okay, so you have plenty of support at home as well.
Yeah, I have to say, social support is so important through all of this. Probably the one factor I think divides people who will still make progress and still find a way forward, and people who kind of succumb to the darkness.
Yeah. How do you avoid that? Because even people who haven't been through stroke the way that you have will talk about the darkness, the difficult times, and the challenges. How do you overcome that?
So I thought about that a lot. And then the two biggest things were our human connection, feeling like people see you and hear you and value you. That makes you feel alive. But also, you do need some hope. Hope that things might get better or even stay the same, but just not get worse. How tomorrow can be better. And I wasn't getting any positive feedback from any of my doctors when I was in the hospital. I had no hope at all. But my family is really religious, so they always have been. And I thought they were delusional, but they always have uh, so much positivity, and because of their positivity, I kind of got a little taste of it, and because they pushed me to have hope.
So hope is really important. Like hope that things will improve, and I think you're proving that things do improve, even though things are very challenging. You most likely in 2009 and 2010 weren't talking the way you're talking. You, def-
Uh,
you definitely weren't attending university.
Not at all, not even close.
That's the whole point of this podcast, because people listening are very different ends of their stroke journey. And offering hope is really difficult to somebody who's deep in the initial stages of recovery, where things may be
Mm.
dramatic for them. And it's kind of like, how do I sort of paint a picture for everybody on every interview that I do that things were terrible at some stage, and then slowly that improves and improves and improves and continues to improve.
Yeah. The only piece of positivity I ever got from a doctor was one of them who had gotten close to me. I was just sobbing and sobbing. She came up to me and said, "It's all up from here." And it was just like so eye opening for me. And so and empowering. And from that day on, I was able to really have hope.
So that was kind of making you aware of the rock bottom moment. That was rock bottom. You had actually got there.
Definitely, maybe a few levels deeper than rock bottom.
Fair enough. Is there even a word for the level that you were at?
No, I don't even know.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I appreciate that. I mean, that's uh, an expression again of my ignorance, right? Rock bottom. That's as far as I know. I've been there. Deeper than that, I haven't been. Take my hat off to anyone else who has been and come back from that. I really appreciate watching people overcome challenges and deficits and problems that stroke causes. It is so valuable for me to receive those stories from my stroke survivor community who has been on my podcast. I mean, that's why I do it. I do it so I can see what they've done, so I can feel hope and inspired to continue doing what I need to do for myself. Um, so I love that you said that you found that rock bottom is probably just. It sounds like rock bottom is just like a basic level of rock bottom, and then there's these other more
Yeah,
advanced levels.
a darker area.
Yeah, I hear you. Fair enough. So, how old are you now?
I'm 40.
40. So you've lived with this condition, this situation for quite a long time. I imagine you've understood a lot and learnt a lot about yourself and other people and the challenges that other people
Yeah,
face when they deal with you. Um, what what's it like to have had the what's the word I'm trying to come up with? Not the mental, but the the knowledge that you have about the situation that you found yourself in and how people react to you and how you people like in your situation move in the community and in the world. That's a big is that's a big journey. You would have a deeper understanding of people, I imagine, than somebody else.
that's actually been one of the hardest parts, especially because I was so respected for my mind before my stroke. So then afterwards, feeling so dismissed and isolated from people was just such a unnerving experience. So when people see me, they see my wheelchair, they see my twisted hands, and they assume since my body is broken, my mind must be broken too. So people say the most ridiculous things to me. I remember dental hygienist was like, "Do we have a poo-poo?" Just like very infantilizing, very dehumanizing, and it just really hurtful. And I don't think that something I can ever really get past because it's people are interacting with you right there in front of you, and in the moment, it's hard to find the courage to be like, hey, no, I'm actually a smart person. I'm an adult, like, treat me normally. It's really hard to do that.
The mind, it's still there, always has been, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm. And people like I may have early on in those days when I was ignorant may make massive assumptions when they see somebody with the physical deficits that you have.
I'm sure I did too.
Yeah. And then you know that you probably would have done something similar and you may have even done that as well, just be ignorant, which is, it, it's it's not an attack to say that to use that word to describe myself or you because it's just the reality and it's if you haven't been in a situation how can you possibly know. Have you had the opportunity to bring people around from their ignorance and to go, hang on a sec, come here, let me just explain something to you, or you need to know this about me?
So I guess that's why I found so much empowerment with my writing. Because you can read one sentence and know that I'm completely cognitively intact. And so I noticed some family friends who did once treat me like a child have now, after reading some of my writing where I directly address the problem with the way people speak to me, I've seen some of those people definitely become more attentive and understanding and not dismissive of me.
Mm. You've made some pretty big, uh, you made some pretty big, uh, you ended up on the Today Show, I think. Did you end up on the Today Show in person or
No, I
a
was
vlog?
just an article
Just,
for
just an
their
article.
website. Yeah.
Yeah. And it says, I'm sick of being the cute girl in the wheelchair. I'm entering my hot girl era. Why I'm done hiding my body.
Yeah.
So, what was behind that article?
Yeah. So it was just kind of me trying to take back control of the narrative that people had placed on me, that I was this sad girl in a wheelchair and that to be treated with kitty gloves or talked down to or pitied. Like I always tried to wear loose sweats or black clothes, just tried to hide myself from the public, hoping that no one would see me.
Mhm.
And then one day I looked in the mirror, which is something I had stopped doing after my stroke. And I was like, I don't look that bad. Like, why am I hiding? And I just started getting into cute clothes and crop tops and fun dresses. I loved fashion before my stroke. So now it was just so nice to embrace that part of my life again. And I read a book that had mentioned the term weaponized glamour. And so it was a kind of what you wear is making a statement to the world about the person you are. It's kind of subverting their expectations of you. So I just found so much power in that.
Yeah. Weaponizing glamour.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. You see people who are 30 years old and dress like a 60-year-old, whatever that whatever that even means, right? But they just dress older, I suppose. And it's like, yeah, it's an interesting choice to notice somebody dressing that way. But what you're saying is you're in a wheelchair, perhaps your body doesn't work or move in the way that it used to, but that doesn't mean I need to wear clothes that conform to potentially some kind of what wheelchair people in wheelchairs are supposed to wear or how you're
Yeah.
supposed to dress. That's not there's not a real how you're supposed to do that thing. And what you're saying is you're better if like it's a form of expression. You can express yourself in that way.
Yeah, definitely. Form of expression. I think oh, that's a really good way of putting
Yeah, because you see rock stars and pop stars, they'll have different hairstyles, they'll have different hair colors, they'll wear different clothes, they might have tattoos, they might have all these things, and it's actually just a way of telling people this is who I am, this is how I turn up, this is what I do, this is how I want you to know me, not only by the song that I sing or by the life that I've had or the upbringing or the challenges that I've faced.
Also, as a woman, it was kind of also a way to take back my femininity
Yeah.
because you can feel so infantilized and desexualized by the rest of the world. So this was kind of like, no, I'm still a woman. I'm an adult. Like, I'm not hiding.
Yeah. And nor should you. I love that. I love that idea that you're taking back your femininity and that you're going to express yourself in many ways, including and as a woman.
Definitely.
Yeah. A lot of people, I feel like in my situation, even though I've been through my own challenges, I don't think they would realize how, um, what's the word? Like how a disability like yours can take away all of those things that make you your unique self because of the way that you are spoken about or treated or looked at, and always through kind of like a medical eye. Even if the person's not a medical person, they always look at you like, okay, what's wrong with her? What happened to her? It's never, what shoes do you love? Or which lipstick do you use? Is that
Um,
is that right? Would that be more conversations
uh,
about your physical situation rather than your personality traits or your quirks, the things that you love?
definitely. It's always like people perceive me as a problem that needs fixing. And that's kind of what frames the whole dynamic. So I think we need to work for a world where that's not people's gut reaction to disability and see us as people just like anyone else.
Yeah. How, so if you had a stroke in 2008, no social media, basically no online world at that stage. How has that changed? That change of social media becoming a thing made a difference for you.
I think it's been huge. I feel so much less alone in what I went through. At the time, I thought I was the only one. It felt so rare and so different and so huge. But now it's like so many Facebook groups, people talking about therapies and what's helped them, supporting each other, and then reading the views of disability activists. It's just so empowering, the place we're in right now.
I'm so glad for social media as well. I mean, I know there's those parts of social media that people talk about that are not so good, but I know that it's been a massive thing for me as well because it's helped me find people, my community. It's helped me share other people's messages. Uh, it's so important and it's helped me feel, even though um, I've not met many people that live near me who have had a stroke where I can connect with or go to or hang out with or catch up with. Even that doesn't happen for me. So I needed the podcast to find my people, my community, and it was such a man, it was such a blessing.
Where are you based?
I'm based in Melbourne, in Australia. It's a big bad city. It's got everything that you could possibly imagine a city and a suburb and all that kind of stuff has. That, but trying to get together with people and find people and bring them together at the same time and have them all overcome all their challenges to get to one location is really rare. And it sometimes happens through the Stroke Foundation, which is the foundation here in Australia that advocates for stroke survivors. Uh, but, they can only run events once a year or every so often. So you don't get to catch up with uh, that type of community very often unless somebody else is arranging it. So it's good that social media exists. You and I met because of social media, and that was shared to you by Dylan, whose interview is going to go out a few weeks before this. So, I mean, that's the most amazing thing to me. I can't believe that this has even occurred, that we've been able to create this community and have 300 and nearly 360 interviews.
It's really amazing.
Do these long conversations fatigue you, and the effort to talk, does it fatigue you these days, or have you become better at being engaged for such a long amount of time?
Better, definitely. Doesn't really fatigue me. I was gonna add, I wrote an article for a South Asian magazine, and because of it, I met a lot of other South Asian women in wheelchairs, and that I think was so huge for my journey. They've all had their injuries longer than me, so they had much more insight and reflection about all of it. So I was able to learn so much about like how to unlearn the things from our culture. I'll also say that they deal with the same issues I'm dealing with in my community. And just as human connectedness was just so helpful. And through them, I could say that you can still have a good life in a wheelchair.
Absolutely, I agree with that. Sometimes I tell the story of Stephen Hawking, the most amazing, philosopher, physicist in his field, extremely popular, very like the top of his topic of conversation, and the most amazing person, and then completely and utterly totally disabled as well, and not being able to move any part of his body because of MND, I think it was, or something like that, motor neuron disease.
ALS.
ALS, yeah. And I say that story just to remind people what people with serious disability have been able to achieve, and to say, I know it's hard. I know it's difficult. I know there's a ton of challenges. I don't know what they are or what it's like because I'm not there. But we need to look up to people like Stephen Hawking beyond his physicist accomplishments. Um, it, it, uh, and and we need to say to people, like, you need to head in a direction where you try stuff that you are afraid to try, that you're worried about trying, that you think is not possible, and you need to get out of your own way and allow yourself to achieve the things that you don't know you can.
Do you know the disability advocate Judith Human?
Judith Human, I don't know her.
So I saw her on Trevor Noah's late night TV show.
Uh-huh.
First time I've ever seen a power wheelchair user on primetime TV. And first I noticed her wheelchair, but as soon as she opened her mouth, the wheelchair was the least interesting thing about her. She's like worked in the government and been on the front lines of disability advocacy in America. And it was just so cool. so important for me to say that seeing a power chair, but seeing like how unimportant that was in the grand scheme.
Yeah, I love that. I have a friend of mine here from Australia who is a stroke survivor. And Brooke is someone who had a stroke, I think, when she was 13 or 14, something like that. And she's in an electric chair, wheelchair. And she is now, I think, around 40 years old as well. And she's a massive advocate. She's involved in every study, trial you can possibly imagine. She speaks at the conferences here in Australia. And a little while ago, she saw there was an opening to have a discussion on disability, some topic on disability at the United Nations. And she applied and she got accepted. And in a couple of months' time, she's going to fly from Melbourne, Australia, all the way to the United Nations to address the United Nations on
Wow,
on her topic of stroke or disability or whatever. Um,
that's great.
yeah, isn't it amazing? And when I said to her, like, what were you thinking about when you decided to apply? Not from a not from the perspective of I don't think you should have done it, but just curious about the way that Brooke thinks. She goes, well, I didn't really think about it. I mean, there was an opportunity. I applied, I got it, and I'm going. So that was about it. There wasn't really much more thought about it. Of course, it's her
Yeah,
passion, it's her topic, it's something that she's deeply knowledgeable about and has lived experience as well. So she thought it was a no-brainer. I have to do this. I have to apply. And if I get in, I'm going to go.
I think we do overthink things too much, and that limits us from reaching for so many opportunities.
Mm.
I was like that when going back to school too, because I was like, how will I ever be at school? How will I afford it? Like, this is so ridiculous. And then I just fell in love with this program and applied, and everything fell into place.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? You're not going to solve the problems that you don't know are going to be there until you're there. You can't anticipate them all. You can't possibly know the challenges that you're going to face. You just have to go for it and deal with them one at a time, if and when they arrive.
Yeah,
Yeah. I really appreciate you reaching out and asking to join me on the podcast. Uh, it is an absolute pleasure to interview people who have the wisdom that you have and who are willing to share it and uh, are doing exactly what you're saying. You're practicing what you preach. And I love that. I just love the fact that you've contributed articles to places, that you're writing, that you're going to uni and getting more qualified. That's exactly what we're talking about. You know, you have to not just give up and think that things are not possible. You've got to find a way forward. I look forward to seeing what else that you achieve and what else you write, and especially if a book comes out of it.
I really appreciate you saying that. It's taken many, many years to get to this point. Within the first couple of years, I was just so focused on getting my old life back. And only recently I realized it's a new.
It's a new life, yeah. Getting your old life back is probably unachievable for 99% of stroke survivors. And it takes some time for some people to discover that as well and to have
Yeah,
acceptance of the situation they find themselves in.
yeah, yeah. Everyone has their own journey to that realization. But I'm also realizing with what you said, it's not just 99% of stroke victims, it's 99% of everyone. We're all trying, relive our past glory, and life just changes on you.
Oh, man, it sure does. Hey, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Well, what a journey. From being completely locked in to becoming a powerful voice for disability advocacy, Hashada shows us what's possible, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, and creatively. Her story is a reminder that your worth is never measured by your deficits and that healing is not always about getting back to who you were, but about discovering who you can become. If you're listening to this today and you're still in the thick of it, early days, facing setbacks, or just plain exhausted, let this be your proof that growth is still on the table. Here's what I'd love for you to do. Reflect on Hashada's courage, try something new, even if it's small. Reach out to a friend, to this community, or to yourself. Thank you for listening. Your reviews, your comments, your support. It keeps this show going. And to those who bought the book or joined me on Patreon, thank you so much. You're part of something bigger than just a podcast. You're helping stroke survivors everywhere find their way forward, stay connected, stay curious, and remember, you're still here and you're still growing, and the story's not over. I'll catch you in the next episode.
Importantly, we present many podcasts designed to give you an insight and understanding into the experiences of other individuals. Opinions and treatment protocols discussed during any podcast are the individual's own experience, and we do not necessarily share the same opinion, nor do we recommend any treatment protocol discussed. All content on this website and any linked blog, podcast, or video material controlled this website or content is created and produced for informational purposes only and is largely based on the personal experience of Bill Gassiamis. The content is intended to complement your medical treatment and support healing. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health advice. The information is general and may not be suitable for your personal injuries, circumstances, or health objectives. Do not use our content as a standalone resource to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease for therapeutic purposes or as a substitute for the advice of a health professional. Never delay seeking advice or disregard the advice of a medical professional, your doctor, or your rehabilitation program based on our content. If you have any questions or concerns about your health or medical condition, please seek guidance from a doctor or other medical professional. If you are experiencing a health emergency or think you might be, call 000 if in Australia, or your local emergency number immediately for emergency assistance, or go to the nearest hospital emergency department. Medical information changes constantly. While we aim to provide current, quality information in our content, we do not provide any guarantees and assume no legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, currency, or completeness of the content. If you choose to rely on any information within our content, you do so solely at your own risk. We are careful with links we provide. However, third-party links from our website are followed at your own risk, and we are not responsible for any information you find there.